For the last topic sa midterm coverage natin class, in lesson 10, we will tackle about the quadric surfaces. So, ang examples ng mga quadric surfaces class is ito, like for instance, itong satellite na to, is a satellite dish reflects signal to the focus of a paraboloid. So, I think familiar na tayo dito lahat. Mas nakakita na tayo ng ganito. Another is nuclear reactors have cooling towers in the shape of hyperboloids. Hyperboloids produce gear transmission. So these are an example of a quadric surfaces at marami pang iba. A quadric surface is the graph of a second degree equation in three variables x, y, and z. The most general such equation is this one: ax squared plus by squared plus cz squared plus dxy plus eyz plus fxz plus gx plus hy plus iz plus j equals to 0, where a, b, c to j are constants, but by translation and rotation, it can cross into one of the two standards forms. So, ito yung standard form niya. It's either ito or ito. Ax squared plus by squared plus cz squared plus z, or ax squared plus by squared plus iz equals to 0. Quadric surfaces are the counterparts in three dimensions of the conic sections in the plane. So, di ba sa plane, ang mga conic section is yung circle, the parabola, the hyperbola, and the ellipse. So, yung quadric surfaces class is ito yung counterparts ng plane doon. Okay. In three dimensions. So, quadric surfaces are classified into 6 types. And it can be shown by every second degree equation which does not degenerate into a cylinder, a plane, or etc. Corresponds to one of these 6 types. In definition 10.1 class, the x, y, and z intercepts of a surface are respectively the x, y, and z coordinates of the points of intersection of the surface with the respective axes. When we are given an equation of a surface, we get the x-intercept by setting y and z equals to 0 and solving for x. Diba ganun man yung tinuro sa algebra natin? If we are going to get the x-intercept, we let y is equal to 0. If we are going to solve for the y-intercept, we let x is equal to 0. We proceed analogously for the x, y, and z for the y and z intercept. So, the same din sa y and z. Kung y-intercept yung hahanapin, let x and z equals to 0. Kung z-intercept naman yung hahanapin, let x and y equals to 0. The traces of a surface on the coordinate planes are the curves of intersections of the surface with the coordinate planes. When we are given a surface, we obtain the trace on the xz plane by first setting y equals to 0. And then considering the resulting equation in x and z as the equation of a curve in the plane, as in plane analytic geometry. Okay, kung traces naman yung hinahanap, let's say sa xz plane yung hanapan natin yung trace, so ililat natin or set natin si y equals to 0. Kung yz naman, ang isa-set na 0 is si x. Kung xz naman, ang isa-set na 0 is si, what I mean is, xy, ang isa-set na 0 is si z. A section of a surface by a plane is the curve of intersection of the surface with the plane. A surface is symmetric with respect to the xy plane if and only if the point xy and negative z lies in the surface whenever xyz does. Okay. It is symmetric with respect to x-axis naman if and only if the point x, negative y, negative z is on the graph whenever xyz is. Okay, similar definitions are easily formulated for symmetry with respect to the remaining coordinate planes and axes. Kung sa YZ plane, ang point niya is symmetric siya with respect to the YZ plane naman if and only if the point, ano yung tawag dito? Kung YZ, negative x, y, negative x, negative, ano ba? Negative x, y and z lies on the surface. Okay, whenever x, y, z does. So, the same with the x, z plane. So, kayo na yung bahala. So, ito yung table or summary ng graphs of quadric surfaces. So, ito yung tinatawag na ellipsoid. Kasi di ba sabi doon sa definition ng quadric surfaces, it has 6 types. So, first is the ellipsoid. Ang ellipsoid, ang equation niya class is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared plus z squared over c squared equals to 1. All traces are ellipses. Kasi, let's say, nag-set tayo ng 0 dito sa isa sa mga variable. Let's say, let z equals to 0. So, ang mangyayari, ang mariremain na lang na formula is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals to 1. So, ellipse pa rin. So, that's why tinawag siyang ellipsoid. If a equals to b and equals to c, the ellipsoid is a sphere. Kung equivalent yung mga denominators nila class, ang tawag doon is a sphere. Another is an elliptic paraboloid. Ang formula ng elliptic paraboloid is z over c equals to x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. Horizontal traces are ellipses. Vertical traces are parabolas. The variable raised to the first power indicates the axis of the paraboloid. So, ito yung variable raised to the first power, yung z. Ibig sabihin nun, yung axis of paraboloid natin is parallel siya sa z-axis. Kung x over c, ibig sabihin nun, dito siya nakaharap or nakatayo kay x, parallel kay x-axis. Kung y over c naman, dito siya nakatayo kay y-axis, parallel sa y-axis. Okay. Take note, the variable raised to the first power. So, ito lang man yung variable na raised to first power, diba? Kasi sa x and y, lahat 2. Indicate the axis of the paraboloid. So, may paraboloid tayo na nakatayo or parallel sa z-axis. Meron din parallel sa x-axis and y-axis. Another is a hyperbolic paraboloid. From the word hyperbola. So, di ba hyperbola, dalawang parabola yun na magkaiba yung direction. Okay. Ang formula din ni hyperbolic paraboloid is c over c equals to x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared. Sa elliptic paraboloid is plus kasi sa ellipse di ba plus man yung sign. And then pag hyperbola na, negative. Okay, remember yung sa conic section. So horizontal traces are hyperbolas dito sa hyperbolic paraboloid. Vertical traces are parabolas. Okay, the case where c is less than 0 is illustrated. Okay, another surface is a cone. Okay, ito yung cone. Ang formula naman ng cone or equation rather ng cone is z squared over c squared equals to x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. So, kung papansin ninyo, medyo magkakapare-parehas lang talaga ng formula. Pero, yung sa cone kasi, naka-squared yun sa denominator. Sa elliptic, paraboloid, and hyperbolic paraboloid is hindi. At saka yung sa denominator na sa left side na equation. Horizontal traces are ellipses, yung sa cone. Diba? Kasi when we let x is equal to 0, yung makukuha natin na formula is c squared over c squared is equal to y squared over b squared. So vertical traces in the planes, x equals to k and y equals to k are hyperbolas if k is not equals to 0, but are pairs of lines if k equals to 0. Okay, another surface is a hyperboloid of one shape. Okay, ang formula ng hyperboloid of one shape is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared minus z squared over c squared equals to 1. Okay, horizontal traces niya are ellipses. Vertical traces are hyperbolas. The axis of symmetry naman is, the axis of symmetry corresponds to the variable whose coefficient is negative. So, ang coefficient na may negative dito, yung variable na may negative, is si z squared over c squared. So, ibig sabihin, ang axis of symmetry natin dito is si z axis. Hyperboloid of two sheets, the last quadric surface, is negative x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared plus z squared over c squared equals to 1. So, ang horizontal traces ni hyperboloid of two sheets naman is in horizontal traces niya in z is equal to k are ellipses if k is greater than c or k is less than negative c. Ang vertical traces niya, class, are hyperbolas. The two minus signs indicate two sheets. Okay? Kung dalawa yung minus sign, ibig sabihin nun, two sheets. So, malalaman ninyo na sa given, dalawa yung minus sign dito. Ibig sabihin nun, tapos ganito yung form ng equation na hyperboloid of two sheets yan. Kung isa lang naman sa kanila yung minus, ibig sabihin nun, hyperboloid of one sheet. Okay? So, let's give an example. First example, class, is use traces to sketch the quadric surface with equation x squared plus y squared over 9 plus z squared over 4 equals to 1. Okay, so by substituting 0 equals to z equals to 0 rather, we find that the trace in the xy plane is x squared plus y squared equals to 1, diba? When we set z equals to 0 here, ang matitira na lang na equation is the xy plane. So, x and y. So, ibig sabihin xy plane, ang trace niya in xy plane is x squared plus y squared over 9 equals to 1, which we recognize as an equation of an ellipse. This is an equation of an ellipse. So, kahit wala kang nakitang nakalagay na number dito sa denominator na x squared, understood na may 1 dyan. Okay. In general, the horizontal trace in the plane z equals to k is x squared plus y squared equals to 1 minus, okay, replace z by k, okay, so k squared over 4, which is an ellipse pa rin, provided that k squared is less than 4. So that is k is between negative 2 to 2. So similarly, the vertical traces are also, okay, so take note, ang horizontal trace niya is an ellipse. And then, the vertical traces are also ellipse pa rin. Okay. So, dito naman sa vertical traces niya, class, ito yung na-obtain. Ang gilet dito na 0, k is si, what I mean is, ang gilet dito na k is si x. So, that's why y squared over 9 plus z squared over 4 equals to 1. Transpose yung x squared sa kabilang side. So, replace it by k. So, 1 minus k. K squared if k is between negative 1 to 1. So, magiging 0. Tapos 1 minus 1, 0. So, if x squared plus z squared naman when y is equal to k. So, ellipse pa rin siya. So, figure 1 shows how drawing some traces indicates the shape of the surface. So, it is called an ellipsoid because all of its traces are ellipses. So, notice that it is symmetric with respect to each coordinate plane. So, this is a reflection of the fact that its equation involves only even powers of x, y, and z. Okay? So, ito yung graph ng ellipsoid natin. Okay? So, ibig sabihin nun, etong ay para makagraph ka nun sa class na kapag observe nyo na so x-intercept, y-intercept, pag-use yung z-intercept. Ibarat mo si z-intercept na inyo ipagleta 0 na si x sub si y na di ba yung kalampas si na si z squared over 4 equals to 1 muna. Solving for z, na ikakuha nyo na. So that's why 0, 0 kulaya. Kapag dito ka para malikuda ka pakagraph yun. And then connect nyo lang siya. And then kung kay x-axis mambu, na ipag-let yung 0 na si y agus z, na di ba kalang bago na sa x squared equals to 1 na square root of x, square root of 1 rather is 1. So that's why 1, 0, 0. And then kung y, sa y-axis naman, i-let natin na 0 is si x and z. So we left with y squared over 9 equals to 1. So, what I mean is, y squared equals to 9. Square root of 9 is 3. Next example is use traces to sketch the surface z equals to 4x squared plus y squared. So, ito yung given natin na surface. So, if we put x equals to 0 class, we get z is equal to y squared, no? If we let x equals to 0 here. So, the YZ plane intersect the surface in a parabola. So, YZ plane kasi, ang gilet natin na 0 dito is si x. If we put x equals to k naman, okay, if we let x equals to k, a constant, we get z is equal to y squared plus 4k squared. So, this means that if we slice the graph with any plane parallel to the YZ plane, ang YZ plane is ito, y and z, we obtain a parabola opens upward. So, tama, di ba? Okay, so parabola opens upward yung nakuha natin. Similarly, if y equals to k naman, the traces is z equals to 4x squared plus k squared, which is again a parabola pa rin. Kung ang k natin nasa constant, parabola pa rin yung obtain natin, which is opens upward. So, if we put z equals to k, we get horizontal traces. If eto naman gilat natin na k, si z, para naman trace niya. Okay, so sa pagkuha ng trace class, maglilet lang kayo bawat variable, si x, y, and z. Ililet nyo lang sila or set ninyo as equal to k. So, horizontal traces niya for x squared plus y squared equals to k, which we recognize as a family of ellipse. So, this is a family of ellipse na, no? Kasi let's say ang k natin dito is equal to 1. Okay, so family of ellipse siya. So knowing that the shapes of the traces, we can sketch the graph in this figure. So because of the elliptical and parabolic traces, the quadric surface z equals to 4x squared plus y squared is called elliptic paraboloid. So ibig sabihin nun, sa pag-identify ninyo ng traces nila, both horizontal and vertical trace, if naghalo si parabola siya kasi ellipse, ibig sabihin nun ang tawag doon is elliptic paraboloid. Kung lahat ellipse, ellipsoid. Okay? So, the surface z is equal to 4x squared plus y squared is an elliptic paraboloid. Horizontal traces are ellipse and vertical traces are parabolas. Okay, ang horizontal traces is ito. Yan, yung horizontal traces niya. And then, yung vertical traces is yan. Yan. Mga vertical traces. Parabolas siya, opens. Another example class is sketch the surface of z equals to y squared over x squared. Ito yung given natin na surface, so hindi natin alam alin doon ito sa 6. Okay, so the traces in the vertical planes, x equals to k, kung x is equal to k are the parabolas z is equal to y squared minus k squared, which is open upward. Okay, the traces in y equals to k naman, okay, x equals to k yung inuna niya. So, ang nakuha niya is parabola opens upward. Then, the trace in y equals to k naman are parabolas negative x squared plus k squared. So, ibig sabihin parabola opens downward kasi negative yung nakuha natin, which is open downward. So, the horizontal traces are, ang horizontal traces natin dito class, if we let z equals to k, so we have y squared minus k squared equals to k, a family of hyperbolas. Pag minus na siya, tapos constant yung nasa right side, ibig sabihin family of hyperbolas na. Kung positive yan, tapos k dito, ibig sabihin nun, ellipse siya. So we draw the families of traces in figure 3, this figure, and we show how the traces appear when placed in the correct planes in figure 4. So the trace in x equals to k are z squared equals to y squared minus k squared. So ito, so these are parabolas open upward, diba? Okay, kung traces in y equals to k naman are z equals to negative x squared plus k squared. So opens downward yung parabola natin. And then, traces in z equals to k are y squared minus x squared equals to k. So, family of hyperbolas. Okay, hyperbolas yan. So, ibig sabihin nun, class, before ninyo ma-sketch yung graph, kailangan nyo kunin yung traces ng bawat variables. Okay, so vertical traces are parabolas, horizontal traces are hyperbolas. All traces are labeled with the value of k. So, dito sa figure 4, traces move to their correct plane. So, ito na yung 3-dimensional graph niya. So, in figure 5, we fit together the traces from figure 4. So, inisa na siya dito sa figure 5 natin. Notice that to form the surface z is equal to y squared minus x squared. So, a hyperbolic paraboloid. Hyperbolic paraboloid siya kasi dalawang traces niya is parabola and then isang traces niya is hyperbolic. So, a combination of hyperbola and paraboloid, that is a hyperbolic paraboloid. So, notice that the shape of the surface near the origin resembles that of a saddle. So, para itong saddle, yung nilalagay sa upuan, sa horse, para hindi masakit sa puwet, diba? So, in this figure class, the surface z is equal to y squared minus x squared is a hyperbolic paraboloid. So, etong parabola dito, ito yung traces in x is equal to k. Kung mapapansin niyo meron din parabola dito opens downward. Yan yung sa traces in y equals to k. And then, yan yung hyperbola. Traces in z equals to, so, pinumbine silang tatlo. So, ang na-form is hyperbolic paraboloid or para siyang saddle. Another example class is sketch the graph or sketch the surface x squared plus 4 plus y squared minus z squared over 4 equals to 1. So, ito yung given natin. The surface. So, the trace in any horizontal plane at z equals to k is the ellipse. Kung z is equal to k, ellipse yung makukuha natin, di ba? Okay. That is x squared over 4 plus y squared is equal to 1 plus, so, negative man siya sa transpose sa kabilang side, naging positive, replace z by k, so k squared over 4 at z equals to k. But the traces in the x, z, and yz plane, okay, are parabolas. Kung sa xz plane, ibig sabihin nun, ililet natin na 0 si y. So, x squared over 4 minus z squared over 4 equals to 1 at y equals to 0. And then, kung ililet natin sa yz plane, ang ililet natin na 0 is si x, we get y squared minus z squared over 4 equals to 1 at x equals to 0. So, hyperbola siya. So, a combination of an ellipse at saka hyperboloid. So, ang tawag sa kanila is hyperboloid of one sheet. So, ma-remember niyo yung sa table of graphs of quadric surfaces, pag isa lang sa kanila yung negative, tapos yung mga traces nila is a combination of hyperbola and ellipse. Ang tawag doon is hyperboloid of one sheet. So, the surface is called a hyperboloid of one sheet. Okay, so ito yung hyperboloid of one sheet. Ang symmetry niya is parallel to z-axis kasi siya man yung negative. Another example is identify and sketch the surface 4x squared minus y squared plus 2z squared plus 4 equals 0. Okay. So, divide natin to both sides by 4, by negative 4. We first put the equation in standard form. So, i-divide natin to by negative 4, magiging negative x squared plus negative divided by negative is positive, y squared over 4. Negative 2 divided by 4 is negative 1/2. Z squared over 2 equals to 1. Okay, 4 divided by negative 4 is negative 1. So, transpose, naging positive siya. So, nilagay sa right side yung 1. So comparing this equation with table 1, we see that it represents a hyperboloid of two sheets. Bakit? Kasi dalawa yung naging negative dito sa given natin na surface, si x at saka si z. The only difference between being that in this case, the axis of the hyperboloid is the y-axis kasi siya yung positive dito. So the traces in the xy and yz planes are hyperbolas. Okay, so sa xy plane, we let z equals to 0. So we have negative x squared plus y squared equals to 1, diba? Okay, kung ilet natin si z as 0 here, we left with negative x squared plus y squared equals to 1. And sa yz plane naman, ito yung sa yz plane, we let x equals to 0. So we have y squared over 4 minus z squared over 2 equals to 1 at x equals to 0. So the surface has no trace in the xz plane. Okay, wala siyang trace sa xz plane. Bakit? Kasi walang formula na negative x. Kung ilet natin na 0 si y, we left with negative x squared minus z squared over 2 equals to 1. So, walang formula na nagsatisfy, no? Wala. Hindi siya kasama sa conic section. Hindi siya hyperbola. Hindi din siya ellipse. Okay. But traces in the vertical planes, y equals to k. Kung ilet natin si y equals to k naman, for k, the absolute value of k greater than 0 are ellipses. Which can be written as like this. Okay, so x squared plus z squared equals to k squared minus 1 at y equals to k. Okay, so we have x squared over k squared over 4 minus 1 plus z squared over 2 times k squared over 4 minus 1, which is equal to 1. Okay, at y equals to k. So, ito yung simplified form niya. So, these traces are used to make the sketch in this figure. Okay. Ito yung figure ng paraboloid in two sheets. Last example class. Classify the quadric surface x squared plus 2z squared minus 6y minus y plus 10 equals 0. So by completing the square, we rewrite the equation as y minus 1 equals to x minus 1 squared plus 2z squared. Okay. So by completing the square na, ibig sabihin nun na i-combine nyo so mga terms na common factorial, si x squared dago si negative 6x, si y, and then si 2z na transpose yun sa 10 na ayaw ko lang ba na y minus 1 equals to x minus 3 squared plus 2z squared. Comparing this equation with table 1 class, we see that it represents an elliptic paraboloid. Here, however, the axis of the parabola is parallel to the y-axis, and it has been shifted so that its vertex is the point 3, 1, 0. So the traces in the plane y equals to k, where k is greater than 1, are the ellipses. Okay, ellipse yung na-traces natin sa y, sa plane na y equals to k. The traces in the xy plane naman is the parabola with equation y equals to 1 plus x minus 3 quantity squared at z equals to 0. The paraboloid is sketched in this figure. Okay, so those are an example of quadric surfaces. So I hope para mas maintindihan niyo yung pag-sketch ng graph ng quadric surfaces class, I hope manood kayo ng ibang videos sa YouTube. Paano ba mag-sketch ng graph sa quadric surfaces? I will leave that one as your activity para naman may mag-effort din kayo na mag-search ng ibang or ano yung tawag dito, mag-effort kayo na maghanap ng ibang videos para yun na yung time niyo na mag-aral, hindi lang dependent masyado sa instructor niyo. Okay? So, thank you for watching.